There you go. Hello, everybody. I hope that you can hear me and see me. Welcome to this session today. We are here with Nicole Wright, which is she's a user researcher, senior user researcher at HoneyBook. I'm Sofia Quintero. I'm the CEO at EnjoyHQ. And the session today is all about understanding how to build an effective research repository, how to put processes in place, even if you are the only researcher in the organization, which is the case of Nicole. And essentially, even if you're in a large company with many researchers, a lot of the things that we're going to talk about today in terms of principles and tactics will apply regardless. So this is going to be a very practical session. Nicole is going to be sharing exactly how she went about it. She will be sharing her screen in a couple of times to show you some of the thinking process behind the building the repository, taxonomy, working with other teams, making research, faster, more powerful, more impactful in the organization. So I'm very happy that you're all here. And what I will do, Nicole, is maybe you can tell us a little bit about you. I know you've been in HoneyBook for 4 years. And then perhaps you can start also telling us why you decided to start a research repository, especially the fact that you are the only researcher. Why did you take on something additionally in the organization? So maybe we start there.
Perfect. I think that's a good place to start. So I think my story is a little bit different from how I got into UX research. I actually have owned multiple companies, and HoneyBook was one of the tools that I used to manage one of my companies. So I came to them on the premises of like a consulting project. We were working on a feature, and I fell in love with the company, with their core values, with what it was they were doing for creative business, small businesses. And so I decided that I wanted to stay with them. So I actually shut down my company at the time to work with HoneyBook full time. And at that point, they were still a pretty new company. There was no research person, no research team, no research process. And I myself was new, trying to figure out how to even go about starting to build research within the company. And as I was learning more about all the different different tools and how to conduct all the different ways of research, I felt like I had a good understanding of our users at the time, but it didn't mean that I wasn't still learning on how to bring all of that information to the team at HoneyBook. So it'll actually be, I think 5 years in October I will have been with them. And I feel very lucky because I'm the only researcher there, so there's a lot of work to be done. But at the same time, I feel very lucky because I was able to build the process and the tools and the way that we share our research from the ground up. At the same time, I had to do a lot of the wrong things to get to the right place. And I think that that was a big learning for me. Is I went really big and started using a ton of different tools and collecting all this amazing feedback and user information. And then it got to a point where I realized there was all of this research and amazing feedback in a million different places. And the only person that could access it was me. And the more people that you start to work with that need access to that information, I felt like I was spending a ton of time just trying to dig up the research I'd already done, or trying to pull information and insights to share with the team. And that took away the time that I could be doing research and talking to users and getting more insights. So I think that was a big turning point for me. Is at first it was understanding how to gather all the information, how to gather the insights, and then how do I make that available to everyone within the company and the product teams and the PMs and designers.
Got it. So just for context for everybody here, can you tell me a little bit about the size of HoneyBook as a company, then perhaps the teams that you're supporting, how many product teams and designers are in the organization, And after that, perhaps you can go very detailed around where were those tools? What tools are you using for research? What tools are you using to gather feedback? If you can tell us a little bit about the structure of the company and tools, that would be amazing.
Definitely. So currently we have 5 different product teams. So 5 different PMs that I'm working with across the board. I work very closely with our core product teams, so there's 2 of them. That does not mean that, so we have like our growth team, for instance. I don't work with them on a regular daily basis, but that doesn't mean that they don't need research support. They need to understand like our users onboarding as they're coming in, and more currently we're working on like new templates for users as they come in. But because I'm like the sole researcher, working across 5 different teams, carrying on anywhere from 5 to 10 projects at a time is not sustainable. So currently we have 5 different teams. That's just on the product side. Then of course we have our support team, sales team, marketing team, and I work very closely and tight knit with all of them as well. And we'll probably get into that a little bit more of like how I work with them. And our company, we're a little over 100 people, so we work lean. We have teams both in San Francisco and Israel, so we're working across different time frames, which makes the sharing of information even more important. And so I think that that's a huge part too of like why making it easily accessible to everybody for me is important. As far as the tools I use, so when it comes to the research I'm conducting, I use I use Lookback for both moderated and unmoderated sessions. I do a ton of user calls, so I'm talking with users all the time. I use SurveyMonkey currently for all of our user surveys. We run yearly and well, anything from once a year to every couple times a year. We do like CSAT, we do NPS. We have product market fit surveys that are happening. So those are ones that are running on a regular basis between product and marketing. And then we also are constantly collecting NPS through Delighted, so which is a great resource for not only understanding how our users feel about us, but at the same time, like we're often getting a lot of user or product feedback in their feature request. I have a beta type group that we run through a Facebook group, and then I use Airtable and user interviews to manage all of the different sessions, all of the different user talks that I'm doing. And then there's and then Optimal Workshop. I use that for card sorting and any of the navigation testing that we're doing. So there's a plethora of tools, and there's some one-off tools that we use here and there, just depending on the type of research project. But that's like the majority of where all of our information was sitting. Now we try to bring that into one place.
Brilliant. So just for everybody and as well in context, so I'm seeing all your amazing questions here. We are going to do a bit of conversation right now with Nicole, as we've been doing so far, to get more context and understanding, and then we're going to stop and have half an hour to address all your questions. And whenever we can address one question because of time, we will definitely ask Nicole if she's so kind and reply to those questions offline.
Definitely.
So yeah, so that's from one side. So definitely we're going to have a Q&A session and at least half an hour to go through all your questions. And now from the perspective of your story, you mentioned all the tools that you use for research, which are quite a few, and I can see how you can have a ton of data. It must be difficult to put it all together to analyze it. But I know for a fact, because you shared that with me, that it's not only the research tools, it's all the tools that you have access now through a bunch of other departments, right? So maybe you can talk about that as well, and how you use that data, like why you want to have access to those tools as well. That would be great to know.
Definitely. So I think for us, like I said, I work really closely, not just with the product team, but also with our support team, our sales team, and our marketing team. And that's for a few reasons. So especially because I'm on the product side talking to the users all the time. I'm not the only one in the company that's talking to our users on a daily basis. Our sales and support team are talking to them even more than I am. They're getting all of the feature requests, the support issues, new trialers coming in to try our system to see like what is it they're trying to understand about us as they come through. So our support team uses Intercom, and then they kind of manage the delighted side with the NPS. And our sales team is using, so currently they're using Drift in Salesforce, and I'll get into the currently aspect here in a little bit. But they're logging all of the conversations that happen with users and potential users every day. Our support team and sales team also tag those conversations. And what was happening prior to kind of bringing all of this together is we would do like a once a week meeting, and the support team would pull up all the data on the tags that they've captured, and the sales team would pull up the data on all the tags they would capture. So it would kind of be like we'd all sit down and say like, okay, these are the feature requests that we see jumping, or these are the support issues that we see like making an incline. And we would sit down at the table and they would share the numbers with us, and we would see like, okay, there's a huge feature request jump for this, but we wouldn't really understand why. So then they would actually go and they would manually dig into Intercom and pull up those tags and give examples of maybe like what the feature request is, because it's not just about what it is, it's like why. So they were doing all of this manually, and then we'd sit at a table for an hour once a week, and that was how we were getting this information. If I wanted to dig into it, I would then have to go to support and say, hey, can you run me a report on feature requests for this, because we're going to start looking at it. So it was important for me to not only like bring that information to the product side, but to make it easier for the sales and support team. Like they shouldn't be spending their time manually going in and pulling reports for me to then have to track down to see if I could talk to those users. So that's how we kind of started bringing in Intercom, Drift, Salesforce, Delighted, all of those tools that they're using. I work with those teams to see how do we bring all that information in. And then not only do I have a quick view of it, but the entire product team does. And the way that we use that is anytime I'm starting a research project or we're looking at adding a new feature, before I ever put together a research plan, we do a discovery phase. Because we have all of this amazing user information, and I don't want to have to go ask users questions that we already have the answers for sitting in an Intercom chat. So now I'm able to do a discovery phase before we put any research plan together to see what do we already know. And then when it comes to research, instead of researching the same thing over and over again, I can just answer the questions or like fill in the gaps with what we still have, like what we're still unclear about.
Nicole did that. Obviously, Nicole is one of our customers at Enjoy. So I don't know, Nicole, you want to share your screen on the thinking process and how all this data is flowing, because I think it will be super helpful for people to see it. So for those that do not know what EnjoyHQ is, we are a platform, a research ops platform that allows you to centralize customer feedback and user research data in one place. And for all the tools that Nicole was mentioning, we have integrations for most of them to help you bring that data inside the platform. But this is I love this because this is a thinking process of how complicated it is to bring that data together from an organizational perspective. But once you do it, you have a ton of impact. And of course, Nicole will talk about it as well. But yeah, why don't you show us there what you have?
Perfect. So welcome to my brain. I'm sorry. No, so this is actually a sketch, and there's a couple of them I'm going to show you, but I actually put these together a couple weeks ago. Because one thing, so while I feel like we have a really good system and we're bringing all of our information into Enjoy right now across all the different teams and cross-functionally, it doesn't mean that I've perfected it. And so for me, it's a matter of like starting somewhere. It's a matter of getting the information to Enjoy. And then I go back and I'm trying to understand, okay, what is it that I need to do? Like, what can I continuously update or change about that process? So this is kind of my like brain dump I was doing a couple weeks ago because I'm working on updating a few things. And so this is like our sales team. This is just what's happening on the sales team, the information that we have there, and how I try to get it to enjoy. You'll see that there's still some areas that are not properly connected, or maybe we're not getting information pushed to one place. Or for instance, what I don't have here is like what's manual and what's automatic. So we're still manually inputting information. When you get to like our support team, for instance, we have all of the information from support is definitely pushing to EnjoyHQ now. But what we're missing is that some of these things are not actually tagged. So there's no tagging happening, which means they're not showing up on my dashboards in Enjoy, which isn't giving me the numbers behind feature request. And then lastly, this is my research process, which still, even the stuff that I have full control over under research is not perfect. I'm still working on trying to figure out how to bring together some of that information and tag it, and also how to really manage the user sessions. And for me, it's all about efficiency. So even if all the information's getting there, I want to try to figure out what's the most efficient way to make that happen.
Got it. So if you leave, for example, can you go back to the sales for a second, the sales slide that you had? So
yes.
Essentially, what is happening here is that you use a tool called Drift for, I guess, online chats with people. And then you have the Salesforce, which is, I guess, partly support, partly enterprise sales. I don't know. So these two are different data sets that makes it into Enjoy. So one of the things that customers and people in general normally ask is like, well, maybe you have a ton of data there and not all of it will be useful for product management or for research in general. Like, can you tell us a little bit about all these sources and what do you actually import and whether and how you reduce the noise and so on?
Yep. So actually the sales team is a great example because this is one of the areas that I'm really working on right now. So we have two different forms of feedback that are coming in on a regular basis. We have trialers that are coming through Drift, which is like all the chats on our homepage. And what happens is when our sales team connects with them, they have the chat conversation and that automatically gets pushed into EnjoyHQ. But right now, because of the way that the tagging works within Drift, and this is where it's kind of like the way that our sales team has always kind of done it, is they take that conversation and they just add the tags to Salesforce. And then of course that information gets pushed into EnjoyHQ. But where I have the breakdown then is that I have a conversation from a user, which I can totally search. It's in EnjoyHQ. I can search by the keywords, but I don't have the tag attached to it because it's done in a different system. So one of the ways that we're looking at fixing this and making this connection even stronger is having some of our sales teams switch over to Intercom where you have the conversation and the tag system in one place. The other example here that I think is really interesting is recently, our sales team has started doing what we're kind of calling onboarding calls. It's new users that are coming into our system, and we're doing these kind of one-on-one calls where we help we understand what their process is and then how that plays into HoneyBook. So we have these like very robust 45-minute calls happening with the sales team, learning about these users' processes. What they're doing is they're taking all of the findings from those calls and they're putting them in a Google Sheet. And then our sales manager takes and copies and pastes what the responses are from the Google Sheet into a Slack channel, which is great in the sense that everyone at the company can find it in Slack. But what's not happening is that information is not getting to EnjoyHQ. So when I go to work on onboarding or like process setup, if I were to try to find information that like these calls have already covered, they're not happening in EnjoyHQ. So what I'm currently working on is that the sales team will be able to create these conversation notes in EnjoyHQ. So we'll have all the information there. We'll have the tagging, and then I'm gonna help the sales team by actually pushing that information to Salesforce because that's the tool that they use. And that'll all be automated. So it's not a matter of really changing their process. It's kind of helping their process. They still have the information, but at the same time, they're not manually having to share it and I'm having to manually pull it or search for it. I hope that makes sense.
And now if we go back to the slide of the research, Because now, imagine that you can connect all your tools and you have all your data there because you have a ton of different sources. Like that's what I felt was so important to share this with the community, because you have a ton of sources, a ton of data, plus you are very comprehensive when it comes to research. So what is your process? How do you start a research project, generally speaking? And then we can talk through that. And there is this very important question that everybody has, how do you go about taxonomies? How do you define your tags, or how you classify things? That tends to be, tricky. But perhaps if you start with the process of a research project, that might help.
For sure. So when it comes to the research process, the first thing we do, so we sit down and we start looking at the data that we have in the company. We have our KRs, our goals, our plans, what it is that we're looking to do. Then when we decide, okay, these are maybe 2 of the features or the areas that we're going to work on, either building in general or making better. So we do this discovery phase, and I mentioned it a little bit, but the discovery phase is all about looking at what is the information that we already have. So I work closely with the data team, our PMs work with the data team, we all kind of connect together. So we work with the data side, but then we dig into all of this user feedback that is now easily available to us. And we do a discovery phase to understand what what is the potential for the feature, what are the setbacks that we've already had, why do people, why are kind of people asking it? And from that, we have a starting point. Now, also from that, what it does is it gives me a list of users that are relevant to reach out to as we begin digging more into this feature. So now I have a list of users that have said, hey, I really wish that you had this scheduling tool. Okay, that's great. Even if it's not really super helpful information other than they just want it, I now have a list of users that I can reach out to that says okay, why do you want it? What are we doing here? So with the discovery phase, we see what is it that we already have, and then I began putting together the research plan with the PMs. And I pull my list of users. So we're very lucky in the sense that we have our users love to share. So I can reach out to them quite often, but I do also recruit because of course I want to have people that aren't using the system to have their perspective. So for instance, if I'm doing user sessions, I use Airtable to kind of manage my sessions right now. And that's just because I have kind of an automated process in there. I can use Calendly to schedule calls. I don't like doing back and forth. So as soon as a call is scheduled, it goes into my Airtable. I'm able to track what's happening. And then I use Lookback to actually do the session. With Lookback, it's amazing because it records their screen, their face. I can take notes during the session and it timestamps them. But then as soon as the session is over, I can actually download the video, download the notes, and I upload them into Enjoy, into the project that I've created for that feature. And it not only uploads the video, but then it transcribes them for me, because I don't want to listen to myself talking for 45 minutes over and over again. So the transcriptions are really nice because I can kind of read through and figure out what are the areas I need to rewatch. And that way, now all of that video is actually searchable in Enjoy. So all of the keywords from the transcription is searchable. Plus, it makes it really easy for me to then share out with the team the important parts of this tidbits, and we can create highlights and all of that in there. So there is still some manual work in the sense I manually upload the videos into EnjoyHQ, or I will take the SurveyMonkey and I kind of format it to make sure I have all of my tags, and we'll get into the taxonomy, have all my tags that are aligned in there, and then I just upload it into EnjoyHQ so that one, I have the information there, but it's searchable, which is so important because I can work on a feature or a project that we're talking about scheduling, but somehow in those conversations, we also bring up contact forms. And in the past, what would happen is I'd make a mental note and oh, this was a really good conversation that also talked about contact forms, but I would lose it because 6 months down the line when I'm working on contact forms, I can't remember where that was. So by having it in EnjoyHQ, I can tag that same conversation that we also talked about contact forms so that when I go to do that project later, I can find it and not have to ask the same questions again and redo the research. So it gives me a good starting point. Now, as far as taxonomy, is there anything before I jump into that?
In terms of sharing, like once you finish the project, like how you put it together, you know, which formats you share it with the team, you know, do you have different ways of sharing the data and so on? That would be really great to know.
Yep. So I have a research Slack channel for our company. Everyone in the company is invited to that channel. And what I do is I share two different levels. I will share session levels. So when I do user calls, I rate each call on a 5-star system. So there's some calls you get off and you're like, I learned maybe one thing. Like I will never say I don't ever learn anything, but it was not that great of a call. Or if I have a call that was just outstanding, there was so much information. I really think that not only like myself should see it in the product team, but really like our marketing team should take a look at it. Our support team should look at it. So I have a star rating, and as soon as the session's over, once I upload it into EnjoyHQ, the video's uploaded, the transcriptions are there, my notes are there. It automatically gets shared out to the Slack channel with the 5-star rating and a short description. So that way, nobody can ever say that they didn't have access to what our users are saying. The other side of it is that when we finish a full project, so when I've created a summary on like the full scale of the project, we have kind of our recommendations, our findings, and as we're moving into the development stage, I then actually share that whole summary on the Slack channel as well. Again, it's automated through Zapier, Airtable, and EnjoyHQ. And so then it's kind of like, it's easily accessible for everybody. And then I will manually share the project with the specific team that it's relevant to as well, and ask that they all go in and leave comments. And this allows me and like the rest of the UX team to really dive in and answer those questions and know that like we didn't miss anything, or be able to know like what are the things that we need to answer for them before we move forward. So I work really closely we have amazing UX designer. Actually, we have amazing UX designers, but I work really closely with one, and that's kind of like it's such an important part for us, is to be able to share that with the team, so that when we get into development and people start asking why we're doing something, we're like, hey, did you read the summary? Did you watch the video?
Summaries are hosted within Enjoy, or you also do presentations? You have a mixture of formats?
I have been putting most things in Enjoy. Now, when there's certain things, like for instance, we're working on a persona project. So with personas, I'm making slide decks that are available to the company, and we're doing presentations. Like we do daily presentations within our company across the teams. Now with those, I love, because even if I do the slide deck in Google Slides, I can then import the deck into EnjoyHQ so that it's in the summary as well. Because I will say that with Google like Drive, I have a hard time finding things. And then it's like if I'm trying to go back to it. So the nice thing with EnjoyHQ is if I have all of my research summaries in there, and then I share all of the details. So even if I'm still have something that's in SurveyMonkey, I'll create the summary that has the link to where the SurveyMonkey was, and then like screenshots of specific areas. But I can always find where that information was originally like posted or held. It just is all stored in EnjoyHQ as like my quick go-to searchable suppository.
So yeah, let's talk about taxonomies. And I think as we go from taxonomies, we can now switch in a minute into answering everybody's questions, because we have a few, but definitely taxonomies. Like, and I really would like to take it back in history. Like, I would like to understand the first time that you were like faced with this challenge of, oh my God, we have all this data, like how are we going to standardize this? You know, when did you start that process yourself first? Did you get other people involved? Like how many times that has changed as well? And all the challenges that you face as you were implementing, not only the taxonomy, but the repository in general would be very interesting. But maybe we focus initially on the taxonomy, which tends to be the headache for all the researchers, because it's like, how do you do this in a way that makes sense and then other people will follow? And it's not perfect, but I know you've been successful at it. So please, can you share with us?
Definitely. So I think that was one of, all right, when we started using EnjoyHQ. So I knew I needed a place to bring all of this, and I was starting kind of with like all my research information. I needed a place to store my, like, have all of the research, all of the user feedback that I'm bringing in from all these areas. And then as we started with Enjoy, I was like, oh wait, I can bring in all of this information. But the first thing and the first question and problem was like tagging. So I sat down, and our support team uses tags on a daily basis. All of the support tickets that come through are tagged. Our sales team uses tags. Research, I use tags. And so the first thing I did was I actually sat down with each of the teams, because before redoing any of my research tagging was the easiest to change, right? Because I have control over that. So I wanted to sit with the sales and support team and understand like how they were doing tagging, why they were doing it that way, and like what are the chances that we could like fine tune and tweak some things. So it was interesting when I sat down with the support team. The way our tagging system works is we kind of have like either it's a feature request, a bug, UI, UX, for instance. So every tag starts with that. Then it goes into the feature area. So the high level, let's say it's feature request calendar. And then it's the low level of show team members. So every tag has 3 different points to it. And one of the things that I sat down with them, I was like, well, is there a reason that we don't have like a feature request tag that says calendar and then is the high level add team members? And what was happening was within their system, so like Intercom at the time, by doing these multiple tags, it wouldn't properly align. So they kind of had to do it in this one long one. And then I sat with the support team who was tagging in Salesforce, and they were doing something similar. But if we looked at their list of tags and the support list of tags, they were tagging the same thing, but tagging them a little bit differently. So the first thing that we did was we realized, all right, we can't change the way that we set up the tags. I can work with that within an EnjoyHQ, and I'll dive into like how I bring them in. But what I can do is say, hey, can we align the tags that you're using in support and the tags that are using in the sales team? Can we align what we already have? And then moving forward, how do we continue to align these? So we sat down and we aligned all the tags that we already had. We made sure that like if they had calendar and it was add to team, the support team was also using calendar add to team and not calendar team calendar, something like different. They needed to be the same. Then as far as moving forward to make sure that like our tags are constantly aligned, it kind of, I took ownership of it, where when we're building new features, actually it wasn't just me, it's me and our UX and our PMs. So when we're building a new feature, it's something that's not already in the system. In the brief that goes out to the sales and support team, we actually put together the list of tags that will be used for that feature when it gets released. And the reason being is like we're the ones talking to the users, we're the ones building the feature. We kind of know, or we should know, as we're building it and what we're developing, what are the questions that are probably going to come up, or what are the areas of the feature that we need to capture more information on, because that's going to be helpful information for us on the product side. So when we build a new feature, we actually sit down and put together the list of tags that we then share out with the support and sales team, and those are the tags that they add to their list. So this aligns all 3 areas across the board, so that we're using the same set of tags. Now, as far as bringing them into Enjoy, when I first sat down and was starting to do it, I went a little crazy and was trying to figure out like, how do I separate the tags and have all these different things? So I was creating rules and properties and all of that. I realized simpler is better, because something with tagging, like you want to do something that you're not going to have a ton of upkeep on. So if I give the tag to sales and support and they put them in Intercom or Salesforce, they automatically pull into Enjoy. I don't have to create rules for them. I don't have to like go in and change like, okay, if this tag comes in, then there's a new property and another rule here, because the upkeep there, and you guys were amazing working with me on this like whole process of my brain of trying to figure this out. But it's a matter of like the least amount of upkeep possible and having all of it still align is so important, because if you have to upkeep it, especially me being like the sole researcher, there's no way I have time to go in and create new rules for every tag that we create that comes in from the team. So I think that that's an important thing. It's alignment, and then let it come in and just keep everything clean.
And when it comes to research,
I think you're okay.
Let's see, hello, yes. So when it comes to research, so that applies very nicely to the customer feedback coming from different sources for alignment and searching and findability. When it comes to research, is it right to assume that would you use your tags and your verbiage a bit more like flexibly because they don't have to align with customer support and sales, or you also try to align when you're doing the research, or it's more free form?
So I think that's something that's like always a struggle, because of course it's like I know what's in my head when I'm doing the tags and like tagging out a survey, but that doesn't align well with trying to bring everything into the for the company. So one of the things that I'm working on is actually building out dashboards of every feature. And those dashboards are going to, and we've been doing it with all the new features we've been doing. So start with like what you have. You don't have to like do all of it at once. I'm going back to all of our old features and doing the same thing. But what I'm doing is as we bring new features in, I have a dashboard and it's tracking all of the feature requests, the UI, the UX issues across all the teams, so that we have like a month-over-month view. We can see, okay, is there a bug that's happening this month that wasn't really happening last month? So in order to do that, I have to align my research tags with the support and sales team, or else it's getting lost. Like, yes, I know I can find it, I know what I meant when I searched calendar redo, but it doesn't align properly with the rest of the team to really get like great insights and a good overview of everything. So the way I'm doing that is I still do my like simple tagging method sometimes, like outside of Enjoy. For instance, we've been working on a product market fit survey. So I pull that survey in and I add my own tags, because we had a bunch of like free open questions, which are always fun. So we kind of did like our own tagging process for all of those open questions. And we understood what they meant and what the feature requests were. But as I bring that survey into EnjoyHQ, what I'm doing is I'm just going through all of the tags that I had, and I'm creating a second column, and I'm aligning them with all of the sales and support tags. So that when I import that survey into EnjoyHQ, now not only is that data relevant to that project at that time, at that moment, but it's relevant to and can cross-reference with all of the other feedback that we already have in the system. So yeah.
I love that. So right before we get into the question session, that's a lot of work. All of the stuff that you've been describing, and I know a lot more work that went into it behind the scenes that we don't have time to go through, but you described a lot of work for a solo researcher. Was it worth it? What are the benefits of really doing this in practical terms, like tangibly? What happens in an organization if you design a system like this? For example, if you implement some sort of way of centralizing data and sharing?
So 100% yes, and there's two reasons why. As a solo researcher, I want to empower other people in the company to be able to not only like help with research and like bring in that information, like our sales team talking to users, like they're doing user interviews for me without really even knowing it as they're bringing all this information in. So it's empowering them to really help be a part of the team, but at the same time, it also empowers our product team and our PMs to have access to this information without necessarily having to come to me. The other day, one of our PMs like messaged me and she was like, Nicole, thank you so much for setting up EnjoyHQ. Like, it's super helpful. And I'm like, she hasn't actually asked me for a research request in probably 2 months. And that's because she now can actually go in and search all of the feedback that we have from users. And she's able to dive in without having to come to me and say, hey, Nicole, like, do you have any information on onboarding or templates? She's able to really access that herself. So I think that that's huge. It's kind of empowering the company to be a part of the research team. The other part of it is I think that it's really given our users a voice to our entire company. Because it's so like, I'm pushing the research out there, I'm pushing the user feedback out there, I'm pushing all of our findings, not just to our product team. Like our ops team has access to be able to like watch user videos and understand who our members are and who our users are. So it's really helped the company as a whole understand the importance of research and who our users are. So much so that I think, well, it was in November. It's weird, I can't remember the last time I went to the office. We're all remote. In November, we actually did a company retreat. And our entire company, our Tel Aviv, San Francisco, remote workers all came together for a week in San Francisco. And one of the things that we actually did was a members day. And so we invited 6 of our members to come to the office, and they spent a day doing, it was like we did process mapping. We essentially, I assigned a research project for the whole company to do together with our members. And I think that that was made possible because the company understands the importance of hearing our users' voices. And so from that, like they actually all got to spend a day with 6 users, really understanding who they are and how they run their business, which in turn helps us build a better product for them.
Are you not jumping on the, I wonder, like in terms of the impact, because it's a lot of work that you put into this, was it worth it also from a personal productivity or yeah, I would like to hear about that.
So I'm a huge process nerd, so I love this stuff, as you could probably tell from my my sketches. But for me, it saved a ton of time understanding how I can even make my process more efficient. So I'm looking at, by putting all of this together, I'm able to say, like, these are the tools I need. These are the things that I need to be doing. And these are the things that I can actually automate, or things that I can bring in or not have to spend extra time doing. So yes, it's time up front, and it'll continuously be like upkeep for me, just because I'm trying to constantly like automate more and more, because I want to spend more time talking to our users and like putting the research together and having all of this flow. So for me, it definitely, like, yes, up front, a ton of time. Come a year from now, or even now from like since I started, the more efficient that I get the process, and like the more I figure out how to bring all these tools together, it saves me that much more time.
Brilliant. All right, thank you so much. So now we're gonna go for the questions, and let's try to do it like really quickly so we can really address most of them during this session. So Nicole, have you ever had to deal with categorizing internal company research versus external research? I will imagine this is referring to market research. Do you guys market research? You bring it to Enjoy? No at all?
So I actually work very closely with our product marketer. And in the past, and we're still a small team, so product marketing also like goes across the whole marketing team. In the past 2 years, we've done projects as far like huge company marketing projects externally on the pricing and packaging level, personas level, product market fit, and then buyer journey. Now, these are things that I work with the marketing team on doing, so it's kind of like a cross-functional aspect, and 100% we bring those in. So it's a little bit different. It's not so much like user feedback, feature request, but we still bring all of that information into the suppository so that it's there. For instance, a lot of times those external research projects produce a ton of like testimonials or a ton of insights that as we're building the features, we want to have access to without, again, going to Google Drive, being like, wait, which presentation did I put that note on? So yes, and then our marketing team has access to EnjoyHQ. They use it for their own interviews. So if they're doing buyer journey interviews, they will actually use EnjoyHQ, bring that information in so that it's searchable for them as well. I will say, there's still like, it's an ongoing process of like training everyone on how to really like dive into EnjoyHQ, and it's something that I try to set aside time with like our PMs or anyone that's really using it so that they feel comfortable. Like I want, like while I set it up, that's fine, but I want our team members to feel comfortable going in and knowing how to search for information or knowing how to add information or how to upload videos, so that again, it's one less thing that I'm doing but they're bringing it into the system.
Perfect. So we have a question related to taxonomy here again, and it's just, could you, it says, how specific do you get when classifying highlights or quotes? What level of granularity have you found to be the most helpful? Perhaps you can give us some examples of your regular tagging properties on, I don't know, on a topic.
So when it comes to the highlights and quotes, I will tell you, I tend to stick to the project level for those. I have the high level tags to like find the information and pull them into projects. But then when it comes to like working on an actual like research project or a feature itself, I create the project, bring all of those in, and then I do my highlights and quotes within that project level. So I use the analysis board quite a bit, and that allows me to kind of just like maybe starting out reading through everything. I don't really know how I want to tag it or how I want to group it. So I'm able to just kind of take my highlights, drop them into those boards, then I can rearrange them as I go to really find like the key areas that I want to like put into the summary and share with the team. So I don't go as high level with those just because it's more of that, like, what is my thinking process at the time on that project.
Got it. This question, I'm not sure if it refers to internal teams, but I will assume that. So it says, how do you motivate users to engage in either one-on-one interviews or focus group sessions? I guess it's easier for you, right? You have amazing users that just want to participate, but you have any tips, any techniques to get people to be part of research?
So I feel very blessed in this area. HoneyBook members love to share. They love to be a part of it. But one thing that I've done, and I think this has really helped, and it helps me for when I'm like in a crunch and I need information fast from users. So first of all, I found out my users love Starbucks. I give them a $5 Starbucks card and they'll jump on the phone for an hour with me. Like, it's just, they love coffee. So that helps. But the other thing I did is I started, I call it like an insiders group. And this is a subset of users that I've reached out to through, be it like what their segment and persona is, seeing that they're using our platform a ton. We have a Facebook group where people like constantly are posting. So I see that the users that are loud in the group and like helping other users. So what I did was I put together an insiders group. And this is a subset of, let's say, I think right now I have around 300 HoneyBook users that are in this insiders group. And they are in one, we have right now, it's a Facebook group. I've looked at better ways to manage it, but right now it's a Facebook group. It's easy, they're there. And they are in the group with the promise of sharing feedback with the team, but being able to see like features as we're building them, to give that initial feedback, to do our beta testing. So it's kind of like this really close-knit group that I can reach out to for quick results. Now, it doesn't mean that I also need users that we don't talk to all the time, but sometimes it's just a quick design question of like, does this make sense, or I need some feedback? And so I think having that like core group of users that you can reach out to and get instant responses from has been really helpful. And our PMs have access to that group. So if the PMs have just this quick question and we don't need to do a whole research project, they have the ability to go in and talk to these users and like connect with them as well. And they can get the responses without it having to go through me.
That is amazing. A lot of people that might be here for large enterprises and so on, they might be like, no, I can't do that. But yeah, it's super helpful. So very technical question here. So based on the slides that you shared, it shows the information being pushed from EnjoyHQ to Airtable. Actually, that's not what you were describing. So basically the question is, what type of data are you pushing to Airtable, or what is triggering Slack notifications? Like, can you describe a little bit the workaround?
So Airtable was my EnjoyHQ prior to EnjoyHQ. So I have been slowly kind of transitioning on doing like less in Airtable. But that doesn't mean that I still don't use it, because it helps kind of keep me organized on what's happening. So what I was doing prior to EnjoyHQ is I had an Airtable for all of the high level projects that we're working on. And then like actual research projects specific to that, and then the sessions that were associated with that project. And I no longer put the high level projects in there, because now I'm able to put my whole research plan into EnjoyHQ. So I start in EnjoyHQ, create my research plan, decide who it is that I want to recruit or bring into that project. then what I do is I have Calendly connected to Airtable through Zapier. So when I send out requests or recruiting to join a session, anyone that schedules on Calendly automatically comes into my Airtable as a planned session. So this gives me, and it tells me which, I have it pulled in, so it tells me which research project they're for, because I'm often working on multiple projects at a time. So I can see what project they're planned for. It comes into Calendly. Now, the next thing that I do is as soon as the session is over, I bring them into EnjoyHQ. It's all there. Once the project's uploaded, video, all of that, I just grab the share link, I pop it into the Airtable, and I say that this session was completed. I mark it the star rating, and I have the integration that pushes the EnjoyHQ link, the session when it was, the user information to that Slack channel directly from Airtable. So then it's like the second I say this session was over, the company has access to the EnjoyHQ link for it. Oh, I can't hear you. Sorry.
Questions that are actually related a little bit to what you're describing in terms of like managing that complexity and putting all the systems together. So the first question is asking, as a member of a research team of 5, what happens if you take 1 month vacation? How will the rest of the team will be able to navigate through the research data that you have managed? That's one part. But then followed with a different question that is similar. It says, do you think you're easily learnable by somebody else, especially if you ever get lucky to hire a second researcher? So they're kind of intimate related. So maybe you take the one from the holiday first, the vacation, and then the other one.
Yes. So both things actually. I've had actual help on the research team at certain times. I had somebody who was interning, was coming in, and then she recently went on maternity leave. So we've gone through the whole learnability of the process. I don't have her right now, but it's something that I actually am building this process for the purpose of being able to bring other people into it. So for instance, our UX designer, she can pretty much handle the process of scheduling sessions, bringing information in. We just created a really, I'm very proud of the summary that we created this week for the team. So yes, it's 100% learnable. It's a matter of kind of like putting together the step-by-step of like, where do you start? So because I have so much of it automated, for instance, like the Calendly that just pushes the sessions right to the Airtable, anyone at any time on the team, if it's someone that's taking over for me, if I'm out sick for a week, our planned sessions are all right there. It has the user information that all gets pulled in. It has when the session is. It literally has the steps of, okay, so now you add the EnjoyHQ link once you bring it into EnjoyHQ and you press complete and it shares out with the company. As far as bringing the information into EnjoyHQ, the UX team helps me with pulling that information and putting it into look back, creating clips and stuff there. So yeah, I 100% think that and my goal is, as I'm continuing is to build this into a process that really anybody can do. I think it took the gal that was helping me with research for a little bit, she actually came from the sales team and then was wanting to really understand research. I think it took her, let's say 2 weeks, not coming from any research background at all, to fully grasp the how to like get users scheduled, how to bring information in, how to push information out, how to create summaries. So working with her closely, 2 weeks, someone non-research related at all was able to pick up the process.
I can answer myself. So I have somebody asking, I feel like it's easier to get set up with a new company, but what if you have 15 years of research that you have to incorporate into a repository? It seems like a huge amount of work. Can you speak about the learning curve combined with the time and resources to do this? So I know you have some comments there, Nicole, but I also wanted to share the fact that we did a webinar like this one a few weeks ago with Okta, which is a large organization, and they had a lot of legacy research or previous research essentially. And they go through the details as well of how they migrate the data slowly and how they structure it. But I would love to hear your point of view, Nicole, how would you go about it if you were going to join a very large company and you have 15 years of research?
Yes. So I think that when it comes, all right, so first of all, I would start with what is the current research? Like, I think that before trying to upload or bring in all of the old stuff, I would sit and do it with some of the new projects to start with, mainly because you may see that there's things like the way that it was that you, like the process of where it was stored and how it was stored may need to be tweaked prior to bringing in all of that old data. So first of all, I would do it with like starting small, like start with where you're at in the current state so that you see, okay, these are the things I need to do to tweak and how I bring it in and what information comes in and how it comes in. Then I would probably, like, as far as like all the old information, when we set this up, so we had a ton of feedback that was already in the system, a ton of different like feature requests, all of the support systems, all of the old research that I'd actually worked on like from the very beginning. And what I did was I looked at what was relevant still to our company. So yes, there's research projects I did on, let's say, onboarding 4 years ago. But since then, we've done 3 other research or iterations of onboarding. So what I did was I brought in like the high level or like the last couple of iterations of it, but without bringing in all of the super old stuff. For us, like we try to look, so we're constantly reaching out to users that have been on the platform forever, but it doesn't mean that the feedback that they had 5 years ago is still relevant to what we're doing today. And we change and add so much all the time that like the relevancy of the feedback definitely changes. So I can't speak for all companies there, but for us, it was a matter of kind of starting now and then like going back in time to what was relevant to bring in. I didn't bring in all 5 years or 4 years of the past research into Enjoy. I brought in all of the relevant information.
Got it. And on that side, in terms of the amount of work, this is a slightly different question, but Sean is asking here, can Nicole guess how much time she's saving weekly since switching to Enjoy? That's like an ROI kind of question, but generally speaking, I wouldn't say for Enjoy perspective, but having this system with all these other tools and how you connected it, you know, if you didn't have that, you can have a sense more or less of how long, you know, how much time you're saving or not.
So I don't know if I could put like an hourly thing to it, but I will say, for instance, like let's look at one area, recruiting. So I was doing all of like the recruiting, all of the like managing of the sessions, then doing the sessions, then bringing everything in, then the summarizing. So let's just look at the beginning and end of each of my projects, the recruiting process, because it's now essentially automated in the sense that like I have my list of email templates in Enjoy that I use for recruiting. I literally attach a Calendly link and I send them out. Now, all of that comes into Airtable. All of my sessions are set up. I have my reminders, all of that. So at one point, I could have used somebody to full-time just recruit sessions for me. Now, I can recruit a session in a matter of minutes. Then when it comes to the summarizing and the findings at the end, it makes it so much easier because I have all of my videos in. I have all of my notes in. I sit down with the project, and I think like the summary that our UX designer and I did this week, it took us a day and a half to put together the summary. And that was, once everything was in, all it was a matter of going through and just creating like little highlights of pieces that we wanted to pinpoint. And like what is just like the high level summaries there, but all the information was there so that if there's questions within the team and maybe we missed it on the summary, they can actually see like everything in one place without having to come back to me and be like, but what about this? So I think that in the beginning and end, huge differences. Of course, there's time-saving aspects in the middle as well. But yeah, working on, I don't know if I could put a time to it, a lot.
Wonderful. And just the last question that we can address here, the other ones kind of we answer as well, but this one is, Sylvia asks, considering all you share, how long did it take you to set up a working repository, something that you could say, oh, we have this and we can access it? And then the second part of that question is, how did you know the Enjoy was the right tool? I'm curious. Yeah, how did you know?
Okay, so first question, when we started with Enjoy, and I'll get into the Enjoy, but when we started with Enjoy, I will say I didn't share out with anyone for a month. I spent 1 month kind of going through, adding in my research, kind of figuring out like how I wanted it to work and how to fine tune it to like how I wanted to use the projects, all of that. I've talked to you guys a lot. Like, I think one of the best things with Enjoy is as I'm sitting here trying to do it, I'm coming in and like chatting and asking questions and like, all right, what is the best way, or can I do it this way to make sure I have it? But I think that I spent like a month before I shared out with anyone. After that month, I actually started training the PMs on it, and at the same time started bringing the sales and support and all of that information in. Actually, no, I started bringing the sales and support in during that month, but I wasn't really like sharing how it was coming in or dashboards or anything like that. Beyond that, once I hit that month mark where I had information coming in, I kind of knew how I wanted it set up. I started training people, and since then, like, it's been available. Like, there's been a ton of tweaks. I've made changes to how I set it up. But then it's a matter of like, I'm just kind of I'm training everyone like what the tweaks are, or like how to best search for it, or how to use the tagging to like work better. But yeah, I think it was a month, and it wasn't like a month and I wasn't doing other research projects. Like, I keep saying, if I could lock myself in like a room for a week, no research projects, no meetings, and just work on like my process, oh, that would be a dream, but it's not going to happen. So it's just a matter of continuously doing it in between. Now, as far as how I knew Enjoy, so it's funny because our UX designer found out about Enjoy, and at the time you guys were still Nom Nom. Mm-hmm. And she had heard about you guys through some class or a group. And we actually talked with you. And we were like, we need a place to have this suppository, because she was spending time sitting down at our support table and like going through support feedback. And she's like, I need help. So we both looked at Nom Nom. We were really excited. But then at the time, the company started working with a tool that we were using for more of like our AI, being able to search, Intercom, Salesforce, all of that. And then what happened is that tool disappeared. And it was like the biggest blessing in disguise, because we were able to go back to the table and say like, all right, so you've had a taste of being able to search that information, but like, it's not designed for research. Like, you're not getting all of my information and like the findings that we have. So we went back to, we knew we wanted to use Enjoy before we ever had that second meeting. Just because there was nothing, like my Airtable was not replacing that information. Like trying to add tags in Airtable to say this call included contact form was not happening. So it was an easy decision for us.
Guys, thank you so much. I didn't pay you to say that.
No, you definitely
just for the record. So I have to say thank you, everybody. The questions have been amazing. Nicole, this is wonderful. I'm really happy that we got the chance to talk and share this. I know about, we're going to put Nicole's contacts. I don't have Twitter. You don't have Twitter, Nicole. What happened?
I don't have Twitter. I'm sorry. I know.
Yeah. But listen, the recording of the session will go out. Nicole is indeed on LinkedIn, and so you can find her and connect. Yeah, and then I can introduce as well if you wanted to chat with her one-on-one. But I'm super happy that we have the opportunity to share, your journey and what you've been doing and how you've been using also EnjoyHQ. Thank you, everybody that joined today.
Thank you.
Yes. Anything else you want to say before we go, Nicole?
Nope. Just let me know if there's questions. I'm always trying to figure out how to make the process better, and I'm happy to share with what I've done, and anyone that wants to nerd out on this stuff with me, let me know.
Brilliant. Thank you, everybody. See you very soon in another webinar. Stay in touch. Have a wonderful week. Bye-bye. Bye, Nicole.
Bye.